Welcome you all to FAM. Tonight we have Chef Tova Sterling, a celebrity private chef who's cooked for Paul McCartney, done pop-ups at Soho House, and somehow turned getting kicked out of culinary school into a thriving career. She's the host of Sinner's Shabbat, a monthly event that combines traditional Jewish dinners with burlesque and dance parties, something that we love over here at 57, and has built a following of over 125,000 Instagram followers with her deadpan Wednesday Addams approach to cooking content. She's proof that sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the most authentic creative expression. Please welcome our friend, Chef Tova. Welcome, Chef Tova.
Thank you.
All right, Tova, so you're an influencer, and we've got to know, as an influencer, why do you turn down sponsorship opportunities?
Well, I feel like why would I sponsor someone else's product when eventually I'll probably come out with my own? Like, I'm very tradwife core, so I feel like eventually I'm going to come out with something that mirrors that, like an artisanal mustard or a gun.
A gun, woo! Where are you from?
New York.
Where in New York?
Westchester.
Where in Westchester?
I feel like you're not asking me interesting questions.
Okay. What's an interesting question to you?
My weight.
I am not going there. I don't know.
So to answer your next question, I am 48 pounds after I take a shit. Like a medium-sized cat.
I'm a little afraid of you right now.
That's what my gynecologist says. Because I have teeth.
All right. All right, Tova, you can break character now. All right, so for those who haven't seen Tova online yet, that's just a little bit of her online persona that she plays, this Wednesday Addams style persona that she's created. But, I think what would be helpful for the audience, especially starting out, is I want to peel back a little bit and kind of investigate, like, where did that character come from? What influenced this deadpan, like Wednesday Addams style of humor that you decided, I'm a chef, and therefore this is obviously what makes sense?
Yeah. So when I first started, I was experimenting with a bunch of different accents. I started with a Russian accent. I was like, in Mother Russia, we don't have breast milk, only vodka. And I was experimenting with different, characters that I thought I could put on because I didn't have the confidence at the time to just like be myself. And I feel like it's good to couch, especially when you're on social media, your personality within a character, because then when you get things later on, like hate comments or in fact people infatuated with you, it doesn't like really hit you the same. So there's this trad wife, Nara Smith. Do you guys know who Nara Smith is? She's a very famous Mormon trad wife, and she does voiceovers in these cooking videos where she's speaking in this really melodic way where she's like, today I'm going to crack an egg open to make an eclair. And like, she makes everything from scratch. She's like wearing couture, and she kind of took the internet by storm. And I was like, adopt me. She's 23, so it'd be a little weird. But and she has 4 kids. It's crazy. But I was like, oh, I'll just do an impersonation of her voice. And so I started not only mimicking her voice, but her affectations, her presentation style. But instead of talking about how I had like a little kid named Whimsy Blue who I was making homemade baby food for, I was talking about trying to find an upper middle class man to date, and doing it in the most unhinged ways. Like the first video of mine that went viral was that I was looking for an upper middle class man. So I was gonna write prison letters to men who have committed white collar crime. And so I'm doing this in this really melodic voice, just being like, yeah, I'm going to write guys prison letters because I'll have their undivided attention. And because of that cognitive dissonance, I think it was able to hit an audience.
That's awesome. There's people are looking for guys in finance, and people are looking for upper middle class white collar guys too, which are sometimes the same, one and the same. Man, I should get a job in finance. In all seriousness, so that's interesting. I wanted to take a step back with maybe like the creation story of not just of the character, but of your culinary career. I know that your mom is Iranian, and you've mentioned that she didn't cook as part of her feminism, but she made a deal with you when you were 7. If you wanted to make desserts, you had to make a full meal. How did a 7-year-old handle cooking for a family like that?
Well, it was like really, I was like making breakfast burritos. I was just like kind of experimenting, but I think the thing that my mom had in spades was this really aggressive maternal energy, and I wanted to kind of have that sort of alpha energy because I was the second oldest. So I was always like fighting for alpha. And if you make a meal for someone, you have that split second moment where people are about to eat and they're hungry, where you have the power. Like you have so much, even if what they're about to eat is like absolute garbage, which a lot of the time it was at the very beginning. But I was really intent upon being the alpha sibling. And so more than the cooking, I liked the energy of having power. And now as someone who feeds 250 plus people at these giant events, it's also that feeling of power, but rather than being like, I'm the alpha sibling, I get to be like, wow, like all these people feel fed. And not in a way that's gourmet or Michelin star, but they feel like they're getting this like maternal Jewish aggressive like
food poisoning.
Eat, you're so skinny. Yeah, you're so skinny, you have to eat. They're getting that energy, which I think is the core of what my mom always had, even if she wasn't an actual cook. So it's really like it's energetic channeling for me.
Yeah, people's stomachs are on the line here. Like you could make or break someone's day.
Yeah,
really. That's so funny. And then, so you started cooking as a kid. And at what point were you like, this is like my passion? Were there other things that you were into growing up that you had considered seriously as a career before going into cooking?
No, it wasn't my passion. I was like in liberal arts school. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I was like, I was at Hampshire College. It's like liberal arts school that's famous for always being on the precipice of being unaccredited. It's like where like if you're a white kid with generational wealth and you want to study African drumming or something that has like no relationship to like the employment world, you go to Hampshire College, you like get white people dreads and you like, I don't know, like smoke a bowl and go to like a sustainability themed campus party. Like, and I was like, I can't believe, I was so embarrassed. I was like, I can't believe my parents spent so much money on this. Like, this is so embarrassing for me. This is so embarrassing for everyone. But obviously I was self-aware because I'm better than everyone else. So I was like, I have to find something else. And I was like, oh, I'll just drop out of college. And my parents were like, no, we did not grow up in a cul-de-sac for you to not go to college. So I took my cul-de-sac ass and I went to culinary school because I was like, I don't want a real job. So that's really what led me there. But then I was like, surprise, I love this. And I'm so good at it. And I'm valedictorian in my class of only men with like giant cleaver tattoos. And I'm like the one tiny girl in like, ripped jeans. And like I shaved my head. And I was like, I'm one of the, and so I was like very good at it. And so I kept doing what I was good at.
But then I also heard you got kicked out of culinary school. Is that right?
Yeah. I was dealing drugs.
You're dealing drugs and selling vodka out of Listerine bottles. Tell us about that genius business model.
Basically, so I got a foot injury when I was in culinary school. I was smoking weed for like probably like the third time I ever did. But I was like doing it with the guys and they were like taking so many hits of the weed and I was like, oh, like I am so like, when you're so high that you like you literally cannot remember the moment from before. And then you like keep remembering and then you're like, dude, like, and then you forget that you're high, and then you start having a panic attack, but then you forget you're having a panic attack, and then you literally have to remember you're having a panic. So I'm in one of those spirals, and I'm like on the top of a hill, and I fall down the hill, and literally this is how high I am. I forget that I'm falling, like mid-fall down this hill, and I bust my ankle. And so then I have to get painkillers for when I'm in the hospital, and I don't take them, but then I go through this breakup. It's actually not even like a romantic breakup. It was a friend breakup. So I was like, why don't I take all this Percocet? And then I got addicted, and then my parents wouldn't give me enough money as a non-working member of society for my drug habit. So then I went into Poughkeepsie, and I was like, I met a guy. We called him Alfredo Tim. Like, I still don't know why to this day we called him that. He was like, Alfredo Tim. And he was like, why don't you just sell to your friends? And so I was like, great. And then my team leader ended up, ratting me out, which was snitches get stitches. And then, I went to rehab.
For the Percocet?
Yeah.
Oh. How did that experience in rehab influence, the kind of not just culinary art, but also your comedy now?
Well, I feel like rehab is just kind of like, because like there's no school for going to comedy. So for an edgy Jewish woman, like rehab is our comedy school. Like that's where you sometimes I meet like edgy Jewish women, and I'm like, oh, you didn't go to rehab? Like what material could you possibly have? Like, that's just the start. Like, please tell me you have a dead parent or something. Like, I'm just kidding. Okay. But I definitely I was so popular. And it was the only time I was like, I had like a real lesbian relationship, because what else are you going to do? Like knit and drink Diet Coke? No. So, those were my formative experiences in rehab. How did it shape me as a chef? I don't know. But I think it made me funnier. I think because there was people there who could get a dark sense of humor. Also, you're in group therapy all the time. And you do not want to be one of those people who's boring everyone in group therapy. Like sometimes you would be with a chick in group therapy, and you're like, Jesus fuck. Can you make your trauma interesting? Like, Jesus, this has we've been talking about this for 45 minutes. There's no story arc. And you do not want to be that girl, okay? Because we've all seen that girl, and it's embarrassing. So I think, honestly, some of my storytelling skills, I was like, I'm going to be content gold in therapy. Yeah. I'm going to be like the group therapy alpha. I'm going to be the most popular. I'm going to be like, people literally thanked me after. They were like, that was a crazy story. And I'm like, I know, I workshopped it. Like you all should have been doing.
You guys turned that group therapy into a reality TV show.
Yeah.
Group Therapy Island.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go back to restaurants because of sobriety. So you saw this hot chef on Chopped and basically kept messaging him into giving you your first agency job.
Yeah.
So this is from another interview I read about you.
It was a stud muffin.
Tell us about this crazy pursuit.
Yeah.
It seems like a very crazy thing to do after therapy.
Yeah. So, so once I graduated culinary school, they ended up letting me back in because I had really high grades, and it was a substance abuse issue. And I wrote them a whole essay, and I did a video essay as well of why they should let me back in. And I genuinely don't think I even needed to do that much. I think they saw I was a good student, and I just overshot what I needed to get back in. So I graduated, and then it was I can't work in restaurants. But I moved to New York having no job, and I told my brother, I was like, can you just help me out until I get my feet in the ground? And I was watching Chopped with him, and I saw this super hot stud muffin guy on Chopped, and he was like, I'm a private chef for Jimmy Buffett, and I make all this money, and I get to travel the world. So I was like, I want to do that. So I look up this guy, I Google him. Apparently he has an agency. So I'm like, oh, I'm just going to call him 27 times until he picks up the phone. Kept going to voicemail. One day he calls me back up. He's like, are you Tova? And I was like, yes, I am.
Are you my stalker?
Yeah. And he's like, he literally says this verbatim. I will never forget this. He goes, "You're the chick that's been raw dogging my voicemail." I will forever be known as the girl who raw dogs voicemails. Don't worry. Now I send like paragraphs. I'm that girl. So I was like, yes, that's me. And he's like, he had a gig for CBS and he had a sous chef who'd gotten sick. So he like needed someone to fill in. He was like, this is your chance. And I was like, I will take it. So my first private chef gig ever was a party for CBS with all these very famous news anchors, including Katie Couric. And that it was so memorable because Katie Couric came to me in the kitchen and she was like, I heard you have cocktail wieners. And I was ready. I was like, I'll do anything for you. And she was like, I was like, yeah, we have cocktail wieners. And she was like, but they ran out. So I was wondering if you could make more. And she stood in front of me for 7 minutes while I was like putting cocktail wieners in the oven. And I was just staring at her being like, that's Katie Couric. And earlier on in the night, there were waiters there and they had been calling me chef. And I was like, oh no, don't call me chef. Dante, the guy who hired me, he's the chef. And they were like, what should we call you? And I had said as a joke, I was like, call me daddy. But they were all Brazilian. They like didn't even know. They thought that was like just an ethnic name. So they were just going around these model waiters, these hot Brazilian model waiters calling me daddy. And so Katie Couric is in this kitchen for 7.5 minutes, the time that it takes to make cocktail wieners from scratch in an oven. And she's just like hearing these model waiters being like, yes, daddy. Because that's the callback that you do for chefs. And so after the third guy comes in, she goes, hi, what's your name? And I was like, Tova. And she's like, Tova, are the model waiters calling you daddy? And I was like, yeah. And then she puts out her fist and I fist pounded the Katie Couric. And it lives rent free in my head. I think about it once a week.
Wow. That's incredible. Fist pumping Katie Couric. One of the many highlights of your illustrious raw dogging celebrities voicemail career.
Yeah.
So in addition to Katie Couric, you've also worked with Paul McCartney, J-Lo, and other major celebrities. What's that like cooking for celebrities? What's the difference between for cooking for someone who's genuinely famous versus someone who just happens to have money?
Well, cooking for people who just have money is like usually better. Like I loved cooking for celebrities. I think it's something that you should do in your either early 20s or like after you've retired. But there are logistics to working to A-list celebrities, which is that like they have 2 sets of staff. Do you understand? So like they have a family office, just like a rich person does. Like a rich person has a family office with an estate manager. They have assistant. They have people who are like managing just their home logistics. And then they have an entertainment staff in addition to that. Now, both of those people so like if you're in a family office, you have an estate manager. If you are in like an entertainment office, you have a head assistant. Those people always hate each other. It's always like gay man versus like, 30-something-year-old woman or 30-something-year-old woman versus like Nepo baby or like it doesn't, I've never been part of like a A-list celebrity duo where they don't hate each other. So it's like you have this like inherent drama and all of this triangulation. And it's really entertaining, but it's also like a really toxic work environment for that reason. Cause you'll get like 3 emails saying the same thing from someone's assistant and their assistant's assistant, but someone else's beta assistant on the other end just being like, make brunch. And you're like, okay, cool. Well, I need one thing to follow. So you guys need to stop being dysfunctional. And for that reason, I left that particular segment of private chefing. Now what I prefer doing, and I took a pay cut to do this, is to like have a flexible schedule so that I work, only like 60 hours a week. So, but it's like
Only.
bracketed. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I'm bad at math. That's why I'm a chef. So like, I don't have a real job. So like, I can't be I'm trying to calculate it in my head. I'm like, I don't even know. But so I'm working, so I'm able to do my creative endeavors and not have to be tethered to one client or tethered to an agency. And I like basically now like scout all my new clients from social media without an agency.
That's brilliant. I love the entrepreneurial endeavor around and the entrepreneurial hustle around running or blowing up someone's voicemails just to get in front of them, to fist bumping with Katie Couric. Before we jump into what you're doing now, can you tie the bridge for us? How did you go from being called daddy by these Brazilian waiters and fist bumping Katie Couric to cooking for these different, celebrities?
Yeah. So once I was in Dante's agency, those jobs were just available to me. And obviously, like, they were not easy to get. I really petitioned when I saw someone on like the roster, and you can tell from a listing, they don't say like the particular celebrity, but you can tell it's a celebrity client based on what a listing looks like. And I would be like, oh, like, Dante, like, I see you have this listing. Can I please apply for it? And I would just really petition to get those clients. And then we developed a friendship, and eventually like he was like offering them to me. But then also like we had a really strange, this is a huge aside, but like me and Dante, my first agent, like also had like a really strange relationship. Like a lot of times, like, and this happens in hospitality, like he would cross a line. Like, I think just like, and I was so young at the time, like I was in my 20s, and we didn't actually see each other in person that often, but like a lot of the things that he texted me were just sexually inappropriate, things like that. And then later on, I was just like being a baddie, and I would be like, I'll blackmail you for this. Like, get me this job. And I would say it as like kind of a funny, but I think like I was so mentally, kind of kooky at the time that I think part of him was like, maybe I shouldn't mess with this girl. Yeah, he's since left the industry and is now in real estate. Like everybody who like has their like early, quarter, like whatever quarter life crisis they're in, that they're like, I'm going to go into real estate. And you're like, okay.
So it's interesting. Like Dante was the gatekeeper on some level.
Yeah.
Once you were able to break through to that gatekeeper, that really opened up doors for you to work with all of these celebrities. And then once you had that under your belt, that really opened up doors to do whatever else you wanted, it sounded like.
Yeah, but I also tried different strategies to like get into the celebrity space when that was what I really wanted. Like I would meet celebrity yoga teachers and I would take their classes and I would befriend them. And that's how I got another celebrity client, because I used to go to Jivamukti Yoga where they do all these. And so people want to get really close with their yoga teachers, even if they're an A-list celebrity. So there was one girl, Nadare, who I befriended, and I knew she worked with A-list celebrity clients. And so once I kind of like got into her kind of circle, I would just ask her to refer me. And so that was another strategy I used to get into the space without Dante. But yeah, eventually I kind of cycled out of it.
It really embodies the entrepreneurial spirit that you have to have as an artist trying to break through. And in this sense, it's like identifying who the gatekeepers are in your industry, figuring out ways to get through to them, and then sort of like walking that path to, bigger and bigger opportunities. And so, after you decided, you know what, I don't really want to work with celebrities anymore, you decided to do private chefing, and also you started doing things like hosting your own events. Tell us a little bit about Sinner's Shabbat, which combines, as we said earlier, these Jewish dinners with burlesque shows and dance parties. How do you even pitch that concept?
Yeah, so it kind of just like pitches itself. There isn't a space for like edgy Jews to go like be themselves.
There's niches and riches and niches.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are edgy for edgy Jews, but they're too niche. Like there's a event called Gay Shabbat, and that's for people who are gay. But a lot of people who are gay who go to that Shabbat go, oh my gosh, the people there are very religious. And so they're niche, but they're not open to secular people. And then there's other places where it's like there are Jewish sex parties, but there are a lot of people who like, they just want the sexy element, and going to a sex party feels way too aggressive for them, but they feel, so there's two sides of spectrums when you come to like, so.
And burlesque is just right.
And burlesque is just, you want to see someone strip without feeling like you have to be in anyone's holes. Correct. That's the correct response. So I think too, it's somewhere where people who are just culturally Jewish anyone can feel welcome, because you can just be an onlooker and just dress up sexy and go to some place where you're gonna meet other Jews. But I was getting rejected from a lot of like the exclusive like Shabbat clubs that were popping up. Like I couldn't get into Locks Club, which is like a Jewish dating app. I couldn't get into Shabbat Club, which is like this exclusive Shabbat party. And when I would go to Jewish singles events or like young Jewish professional events to find my Jewish husband,
Upper middle class
Jewish husband, no pores. I just wasn't vibing. And then there was one time where I brought my dominatrix friend, and she was like talking up people at this young Jewish professionals event. She's Jewish, and she was like talking to them, and they sent me an email afterwards being like, I don't think based on your +1, like you understand what a young Jewish professional is. And I was like, that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was like, okay, well,
based on your +1.
Yeah. I was like, screw this. And so I needed to find something where I was like, what could be some place where someone could talk about being a Jewish dominatrix and it's like chill. So that was the original inspiration. And then the first event that we did, it was basically one WhatsApp post that we did as just like a test, me and some friends. And we got 60 people. And we were like, oh my gosh. And then friends of friends wanted to invite their friends to Sinner Shabbat. And so the second event that we ever did was 100 people. And we had to like rent out a loft. And we ended up renting out Hit Me Up, which is like a sex loft. It's where people do sex parties. And then we needed to expand from that because we had 250 plus people who wanted to sign up. And so now we rent out this place called The House in Bushwhack. I'm in West Village, so like that's the only reason I'm going out there. So, and it's 2 floors and it's perfect, and we have performers. And now, we have performers, just like the most talented burlesque performers in New York. Just out of vibes, are now willing to like work with us because they see the vision of like what Sinner Shabbat is.
Wow, that's awesome. Throwing your own events is, quite a difficult undertaking, as we know. So that's amazing. You went from private chefing, celebrity chefing to you're also throwing your own events. At what point did you decide, I also want to get into content creation and, really lean into the comedy angle as well?
The rise of people wanting to go to Sinner Shabbat kind of correlated with my social media fame. So I was like posting on social media, and Sinner Shabbat was happening, but it was still in like the 100-person realm. And I brought my brother on as a producer for the event because I just needed help with the capacity of people, with staffing, with, casting and all this stuff for the events, along with another producer. And so we sort of like had to like kind of raise capacity. And so I sort of outsourced all that producing stuff, and I kept posting. My focus became being the host and the face of Sinner Shabbat. And I realized that the two were working in tandem. Like I was getting a huge Jewish following, not because I was the girl looking for an upper middle class man, but because my audience was Jewish to begin with, because they were like identifying with me. And the more I talked about being Jewish, the more I was pulling numbers. And so now a huge majority of my following is Jewish. And so I kind of pander to that. And it's easy to do a post and get 50% of that audience from social media because they feel this sense of kinship with me just out of being an edgy Jew. And it's, I know a lot of influencers, and a lot of them don't like their own following. And I feel really special to know that the people online, like the things that they're commenting are really insightful and funny. And then a lot of those people end up coming to Sinner Shabbat, meeting me, I see them in person. I'm like, oh my God, you're so cool. Like, you're like a neurosurgeon who's like now coming to Sinners, and you love my stuff, and you're saying your own stories. And I think that cycle of like, I know who my audience is and they're really special people is like, it ended up being pretty circular in a really nice way.
You've cornered the market of Jews who are not too religious, but not too sexy.
Not too sexy, and no such thing as not too too sexy. But we actually have pretty religious people who come there. Like on the spectrum of people who are willing to go to a burlesque show on a Friday, we had like an Orthodox lesbian couple who came there, and they ended up meeting this girl who like found out recently on Ancestry.com. Don't sell your data to them. Don't like give if you have like your 23andMe, like get rid of your data, by the way, because like they were selling it. But she found out because she peed in a cup for them and like sent it out, and that she's like 100% Ashkenazi, and she like wanted to find out about her Judaism. And she met this couple there who's like, they actually like, they keep kosher and all this kind of stuff. And those three connected, and now they have like brunch once a week. And like this girl who like didn't know about her Judaism at all is like really, really connecting with it. And so it's like the fun stories of like, oh, I hooked up with a hot guy that we love, but it's like also nuanced stories like that you can kind of create when you're a niche space.
You talked about how like the rise of your desire to get into content creation and content creation in general coincided with the event. But I'm curious more about how at what point were you like, you know what? I just need to do this. I need to put myself out there. Was that easy for you? Is that hard? I know, for many creators in the room, oftentimes we're like, we just want to focus on our art. We don't want to create things for, the Instagram. We just want to focus on making music or painting and whatnot. Like, what was that breakthrough moment for you where you're like, you know what? I have a concept. This is my idea. Or was it through trial and error? Can you walk us through that?
I originally started my Instagram page because I'd written a memoir about being a celebrity private chef, and I was getting feedback from the publishing industry that in order for my book to sell, I needed to have a social media following. So I was like, great, I'll get one. And they were like, okay. There was actually the literary agent who ended up signing with me was like, just try for 6 months to get, 10K. I think that would even do. And I was like, no, I'm going to be at 100K by 6 months. And by 5 months, I was like at 100K followers. And she was like, she ended up being like, credit where credit is due. And that book ended up getting rejected by all the publishers that she pitched. And through that process of sort of like rejection, I think I realized like, for me, it doesn't matter whether I'm writing a book or doing a reel. For me, I care about a consistent creative practice, and being seen as an artist is really, really important to me. So I actually don't really care what I'm doing. The thing that matters is the consistent creative practice. And I found Sinner Shabbat through content creating. I found that refound joke writing through content creating. I refound this entire friend group and community through what I do. There's so many things that led me. And I think just that commitment to being like, what am I getting seen as a creative right now? And how do I follow that has been so fruitful for me. And I ended up getting my book rejected, but there were 10 literary agents who reached out to ask me if I would create a cookbook. So now that's what I'm on right now. And so maybe that memoir will never see the light of day, and maybe it's something that people will see later on. But I don't really care at this point because I'm so focused on what am I creating in the now that's special.
I love that. And I think what really resonates is I think oftentimes people look at social media as marketing. And when you think of it as like, I need to, do marketing, I need to focus on marketing, it can be very draining. But when you find the thing for which, the creative practice in and of itself is an art form for you, as artists, we just love making art and we just want to keep making art. And so then it becomes natural that you're just aligning your own artistic process with the thing that also happens to be, the content creation for your audience. Love that. And then the other thing that I think is a really interesting takeaway too is, you mentioned really first identifying your core audience and then really being able to serve that audience with the things that you're making. I think too often, for folks who are thinking about marketing, we sometimes don't even think about, okay, who am I actually creating things for and who the audience is. So it seems really helpful to be able to identify not just what resonates with you, but also the intersection between what resonates with you and what resonates for others.
And I don't actually believe in the word marketing. I don't believe that there is marketing. I think there is good and bad art. And so when we see an ad, usually we're like, that's marketing. No, it's just bad art. If someone tried to make this art, there's a niche audience for it. They have a need for it. The funnel to them getting it is either enjoyable or non-enjoyable. When I see I don't know, a Klonopin commercial, right? If I take Klonopin, there's either a joyful way to receive that commercial or a not joyful way. If it's joyful, then it's art. I think that Geico is a really great example. Geico is good art.
Yeah.
The ads are fun. And so
Whereas Klonopin is side effects may include diarrhea, death, brain hemorrhaging, bleeding through your nose forever.
Yeah, I think if you're not enjoying, because life is art.
Yeah.
So stop making bad art.
For folks in the room who are trying to figure out what they're doing on social media, how to amplify their art, what advice would you give folks starting out?
I think it's really just finding a formula and selling out a little bit. I think really it's so many people are the most important thing is that I'm authentic to myself. It's what are you talking about? Being a creative in this world is a democracy. Just being funny is a democracy. So I can be I'm funny. And it's are you? That's not even your decision. If I'm in a room and people are laughing, the democracy says I'm funny. And I need to kind of think I'm a little bit funny for that democracy to have weight in it. If I'm in a room and I start being I'm funny and no one's laughing, then I'm not funny. I can say I'm funny until the cows come home, but that's just not what reality is proving. So content creation is a lot like that. You need to be authentic to yourself and project something out into the world I'm funny or I'm a dancer or I'm XYZ. But then you actually need to get biofeedback from the audience and see where they're picking up those cues from you, what they're receiving from you. And if you need a pivot, if you go into it being I'm a memoir writer as a private chef, and the audience is no, we actually love you being the quirky burlesque party Jew, then you can see what resonates and don't get stuck in a box, but actually the world kind of likes a part of your personality and is going to find you. And so really leaning into that, I think, was really helpful for me, because then I wasn't trying to push against a wave that was taking me. And the selling out part a little bit is what a platform like Instagram wants is a 20 to 30 second clip. I might have a minute worth of things to say, but I actually need I have 3 seconds to get someone's attention. I have 6 seconds to capture it. And I have the rest of the video needs to end within a certain amount of time for it to gain attention. And you actually need to you look up a couple YouTube videos and game the system.
It's find the thing that's authentic for your process, but don't be blind to what's actually working and really lean into that. That's wonderful. This has been so informative, instructive, and hilarious. Thank you so much, Tova, for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.